everyone, it's Lauren with Green Acres Nursery and Supply, and today we're going to be doing a DIY terrarium. There's so many reasons we love terrariums, and one of them is that it's a great project to do when you want to repurpose a container. You likely already have something you can use in your home, like an old pickle jar, or maybe even a larger mason jar, or you can make an adventure out of it, go thrifting, find a really cool old like glass cookie jar or something like that. And of course we have options here in the nursery. Alright, let's get into the materials you need for this project. So the first thing you need to do is decide on the container you want to use for your terrarium. Before you choose this, you need to decide, are you going to use houseplants for this terrarium or succulents? You can use either one, but if you are using succulents, you don't want a container that is enclosed. They need the airflow all the time to breathe, but if you're using houseplants, you can choose something that has a lid that you can close. The next thing you're going to need is either horticultural sand or some little stones and pebbles. We have tons of options to choose from in the nursery. This layer of either sand or pebbles will act as a drainage layer, which is really important in a container that does not have any drainage holes. The next thing you're going to add is your charcoal. Charcoal is really important in terrariums because they can often get a little bit stinky, but the charcoal will help to take away the smell. The next layer is going to be your moss. That'll help retain some moisture, and then your soil. If you're using houseplants, you're going to be using a potting soil because it will help retain moisture. If you're using succulents, you want to use our cactus and succulent mix because that will not keep as much moisture, which is good for the succulents. Lastly, you're going to choose your plants, whether that be houseplants or succulents. How many you use will depend on the size of your container, so keep that in mind when you're shopping for plants. If you have just a really small mason jar, for example, you might only want to use one plant, but if you have a bigger glass container, it could hold maybe 3. One thing that's optional that you can use are some little fairy garden decor items. You can choose from little dogs, we have some over here, or little mushrooms. Totally optional, but fun, especially if you're making this with kids. Let's get started. We went with a pretty basic terrarium here, and now we're adding our drainage layer. So create your layer with your rock and or pebbles and sand here. If you want to be able to see the layer more from the outside of the container, you can go ahead and make it thicker. It's not necessary, but it will be more visible once the whole terrarium is completed if the layers of sand and our rock are thicker. And now we're going to be adding in our charcoal. You don't need to use a ton of charcoal, but a little will go a long way when it comes to the smell. And next we're adding in our moss. This will help absorb excess moisture. And now we're adding our soil. And since we're using houseplants, we will be using the potting mix. You may need to add some more soil once you get your plants in there to make sure you have your roots covered up. And you can just keep adjusting until you like the way it looks. This is the stage where you could add in those extra decorative items, little mushrooms or little fairy garden items. You could also add in a crystal if you have one, or a special seashell. You can really personalize it. Now that we've finished our terrariums, let's talk a little bit about the care. Terrariums thrive in indirect, bright light. They like to be watered about once a week, but that really depends on the conditions of your home and if there's a lid over the top, because that will retain the water. Before you water, make sure you check the soil with your fingers. You want it to be moist, but you do not want your soil to be soggy. So if it still feels pretty wet, hold off on watering and check back in a few days. And if you have succulents in your container, be sure to let the soil dry out more, as you would if you plant succulents anywhere else. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and our team will get back to you. You can also reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram at I Dig Green Acres. And of course, our staff is always available in the nursery to help answer your questions. Subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos like this, and if you have a video suggestion, we'd love to hear from you. Leave it in the comments below. Thanks for watching!